Hey, what's up everybody? It is Kellen here from Start Your Systems and welcome to another edition of Track Walk in MX Simulator, where today we're going to be playing a track called Runswick Coast by a brand new user on the forums. I mean, literally brand spanking new. This dude's name is Titan, and he just made a forum account a couple weeks ago. I think he's only been posting since like October 7th or something like that. So really new, and then he just dropped an absolute banger of a track this week that I felt like I needed to get down and play before you guys missed this one funneling back through the track list. So this one, like I said, called Runswick Coast, and I also wanted to read the track description that he left with it, because he left kind of a cool storyline for the inspiration for it. So I'm going to take a quick pause so I can read it. He says that Runswick Bay is a town close to his home, which is how he got the name for this build. The inspiration for the track itself came from a friend who had built a short track on a farmer's field very close to the edge of a cliff. And he said if he's honest, he's surprised the crazy guy didn't go over the edge because of his riding like Ronnie Mac looked professional. Anyway, long story short, the farmer kicked off because apparently the sheep got scared. I'm not sure how the sheep relayed this message to the farmer, but it's his land, so the track got left. So now all he's got left is this track, this virtual memory. And then he says, but then again, MXS keeps telling me I've ran out of that too. I did not run out of virtual memory when I loaded up this track. But apologies if you guys are going to have any issues with this track loading. It does look like it's actually really detailed and built, and he's got a lot of grass statues and such like that, which can also take up a lot of your virtual memory space. So may not be the easiest in terms of labor intensive on a computer, but it does make the track itself look gorgeous. And like he was saying, just like this really cool kind of scenery that you don't probably see a motocross track on very often, overlooking like this kind of coastal bay area that is down below. I'll go look at the sand section down below in a second, but I wanted to actually ride the track a little bit first, and then just like really nicely done and weaving through the trees and doing a bunch of these cool little like drop downs and step ups and big launches, and the track crosses itself a couple times and things like that. Overall, just a beautiful and perfectly nice built track that wanted to share with you guys all today. He also has this really cool like map detailed on the right side, and he posted it on the forum post as well, that says like each section of the track and like what item of the track you're about to hit. So like you go through the first turn, and the first jump you hit is called a full sail, and then you have the heave ho, the booty, black spot, walk the plank, like all these fun kind of section names, which honestly, like when I started building tracks in this game, one thing I wanted to do was like have a story for each track. So the very first track I ever released, which I did a track walk on way back in 2015, it was called Salton City MX Park. And Salton City is like this small, little, almost non-existent anymore town just off of the Salton Sea in California. And it's like abandoned, but just behind it there's like a hill, a lot of hills above the desert. And so I basically said like this track is, imagine if you situate this track up in those hills looking over the Salton Sea. Here's the sand, you have like the 12 commandments that I laid out and like all this stuff like that. So I gave like a whole backstory to each track, and I love when people make a track in this game, and whether or not the backstory is real or just like some kind of fun fake backstory, it's always cool to see like some true inspiration for why a guy built a track instead of just, I wanted jumps and I made this track. Go play it. You know what I mean? So I like that part of it. I like the little fun names of the jumps and stuff like that. Adds a little bit of flavor to it. The track itself, I think, is just got such a good flow. It's got a really non-resistant tile map on it, so you suddenly feel like you're hauling butt, and it's really easy to break traction, like lose your front end and it just slides for days. That's usually because it's not got a ton of roll resistance, and it's a little bit of a slicker actual tackiness to it. I think it works for this track, quite honestly, because it makes you feel like you're really flowing fast through the trees if you can like kind of settle down and get a good rhythm going. Not everyone is going to feel that comfortable on this track though, like I said, because it's a different tile map than most people I think are used to, which is either like the RF Supercross or Nationals tile map that everybody uses, or at least something that's a little stickier. I think from like 2013 on, when JLV stopped making the Supercross tracks, everybody went away from like a slicker base of a track and started going with more roll resistance and something that felt a little tackier and held you down. But I always actually liked those slicker tracks because they were a lot more technical, and you actually had to feather the throttle and be in the right gear and all this stuff, where now it's kind of easy to flub everything up and still get plenty of traction to do whatever it is you're going to be doing in a rhythm section or something along those lines. So it's fun to kind of almost throw back to this traction, if you will, and play something that's slick and unique like it. Let me actually go down below before I forget to this beach below. It's not anything aesthetically super pleasing once you're down here, but you know, just a sandy base. He kind of laid in some water in here. Just drops down into the water though, so definitely has that bay feel. Not much of a beach, more of a bay. And then a big cliffside that leads up to that track up above and to the lighthouse up above. Just overall really, really cool stuff here. I think this is a nice build and worthy of a track walk in my opinion, hence why I have done it. I just got back from the Monster Cup over the weekend, and there's gonna be a lot more stuff to talk about with the Monster Cup coming up this week, but I feel like I should at least share some brief thoughts about the race that was, because I felt like I was a little bit off my mark when I said that it was gonna be boring and Tomac was gonna take it home to a snooze fest. Boy oh boy, we have some interesting storylines heading into Supercross. That Malcolm Stewart and Adam Cianciarulo look like they're guys that could potentially be somewhat players. I mean, I know it's only one race. You can't judge a book by its cover, but what a 450 debut by Cianciarulo, and Malcolm doesn't look like he's missed a beat after being off the bike for 9 months, essentially, or, you know, off the racetrack for 9 months after he broke his femur. And the reason why I'm, like, not too down on Malcolm and saying like, this is a weird off-season race, anything can happen once you get to real Supercross, is because Malcolm was brilliant on this track and it didn't have whoops, and Malcolm is by far the fastest rider in the whoops these days. So you add whoops to the equation, and he was probably the fastest rider on the track all week at Monster Cup, because he was really good everywhere but is outstanding in the whoops. So really like where Malcolm looked this past weekend. Obviously, AC rode really well. I thought Tomac rode perfectly fine. I just think that his starts hurt him, and then obviously having a crash doesn't help. So, really, really weird Monster Cup. Didn't expect the results that came up out of this one at all. The racing was halfway decent, but personally speaking, still not like the hugest fan of the event, and I'll just point out the fact that we've probably lost Dean Wilson for the 2020 season with a dislocated hip as a reason why I don't particularly love this race. If you're going to have an off-season race, I'd love for it to be able to stick to the most historic off-season race that's ever existed if we're going to have one. But I get it. They take their risks, and everybody that goes there can choose to go or not. So just unfortunate that's the way the cookie crumbles. Felt horrendous for Dino, and you know, just having signed that contract with Rockstar Husky and things looking up, and sounded like he was riding pretty well in practice until that happened, so that sucks. Jordi Tixier got knocked out in the same section. Really happy Tim Gajser didn't get hurt, but he actually rode fantastic. He seemed like he got better and better as the day went on, which is really cool to see, because goes out and, you know, the practice sessions on Friday, or like the press sessions that they had on Friday, and I'll admit I thought he looked pretty timid. Didn't see him at all in qualifying on Saturday, but still was 5th fastest in the first one, 7th fastest in the second session, and then goes 6.44 for technically 5th overall, but just a really, really good week for Gajser. Not getting hurt, riding well. Overall, it seemed like about what you would expect and what you would want out of his scenario for a Monster Cup. Like, come over here, prove that you can race with these guys indoors and out, essentially, because he can. He was... Malcolm had a tough time passing him in that last main to get into 4th, and he rode well. He stuck with the Kawasaki boys for a few laps. He was riding good times. His starts were on point. I don't think you can say that Gajser was not able to show that he looks like he could race Supercross and be fine. Yeah, there were no whoops the same way we could say about Malcolm, but the one thing that you could look at was that there was a dragon's back, which a lot of guys say are even sometimes sketchier than a set of whoops. And Gajser looked like he had no problem attacking it hard, skipping off the dragons, jumping down into the double. Like, everything was smooth. So I was quite impressed because it didn't go great in 2017. He was fast until that point, but it was like a sketchy fast. This time he looked a lot smoother, a lot more in control, and like in general a lot more racy instead of just like sketchy. So really cool to see. And in general, I thought, good Monster Cup other than the injuries. So I guess I'll eat a little crow. Like I said, I was a little wrong about the Monster Cup going in advance and being a snooze fest with so little star power. But yeah, we'll have to see. I'm not too sure what the future holds for Monster Cup anyway. I've been hearing a lot of rumblings about it moving in the future, especially because the Raiders Stadium is going to be done here pretty soon. They'll move to Vegas, and there's a rumor that the Supercross will move to the Raiders Stadium. And Sam Boyd Stadium is supposed to get torn down, but they're not going to let them run Supercross in the middle of the NFL season, essentially, which is what they are doing with Monster Cup. The college football doesn't really care that much, I guess, that the UNLV Stadium gets taken up for this event. But there's absolutely no way they would be racing this event at this time of the year in that new Raiders Stadium. So they'd have to go somewhere else, and where they would go, I really don't know. Maybe Angel Stadium, but then you always run into the problem of if the Angels made it into the playoffs or the World Series, then your predetermined date doesn't match up and things like that. Curious what's going to lie ahead for the Monster Cup and how that plays out in the next couple of years once Sam Boyd's gone and that new Raiders Stadium is in. So just a couple thoughts on that, and a couple thoughts on this wonderful track by Titan, which I would definitely recommend you guys check out. Head to the description below to try it yourself. And I know some of you guys are probably going to comment, dude, Supercross 3, do we get anything about the new game, any gameplay, etc.? I think you guys need to sit tight, and you'll see some stuff. Promise. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching another edition of Track Walk. Right here on SYS, I should say. I'm not live, but here on the SYS channel. Download the track in the description below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. So long for now.